The backlog. A hot topic across YouTube. Everyone's always talking about the backlog. How do I get through my backlog? What do I do? What tools do I use? I've been watching some videos and I want to talk about some of the things that I picked up from several videos that I've watched and some of the favorite tips and tricks that I've picked up that I think are going to work for me. First things first, let's just get this out of the way. Having a backlog is a good thing. Your little self would kick your ass if they found out that you were complaining about having a library to go to.
What is it you want from me? Money? Weed?
When we were kids, we got stuck with what we got, and honestly, that was a blessing and a curse. We got stuck with some really crappy games, but we learned to love them, whereas now we have too many games and we're so quick to give up on them that we don't enjoy them as much. So having a backlog is a good thing. If you didn't have a backlog, you'd be at the mercy of some of these new releases that are garbage on release, that are broken. So be thankful. Don't let it stress you out. It's a good thing. Games are meant to be a form of entertainment, a way to escape. It's not an obligation, so enjoy it. First thing I would recommend is make a list of games that you want to play. Decision fatigue is a real thing in the adult world. We have to make decisions all day, every day, and by the time you get home, you don't want to make decisions anymore. So have a list ready of games that you are looking forward to playing, and when you're making that list, be mindful of a couple of things. Make sure that you look at how long the game takes on average to beat. Make sure that you're not filling up your list with games that are going to take 200 hours apiece. Mix up the genres. Evaluate how much free time you actually have and be realistic. Do not overpromise yourself. If anything, undersell it a little bit. Plan ahead. If there's going to be new releases that you know you're going to want to play on day one, count that in. If you want to leave a little bit of wiggle room for new releases that you don't know are coming out yet, do that as well. But be realistic with the time that you have available to play your games. Otherwise, you're just going to feel defeated by your list and your backlog. Once you've made your list, you've evaluated how many you think is realistic for you to beat or play through. Set them aside in a place where you'll see them on a pretty regular basis. That way it's not out of sight, out of mind. Have it at the forefront of your thoughts and make sure that you're making time for yourself to play your games. Like I said, this is not meant to be a stressful process. If it is stressing you out to find time, then evaluate how you're spending your time currently. Are you spending an hour in the morning scrolling through TikTok? Are you wasting your time doing other things that you feel are not of benefit to you? Look at all of it. One of the suggestions I see a lot is don't buy any more games. I don't know about you, but there is absolutely no way I'm going to follow that. But I will put an asterisk on it. If there is a game coming out on day one that is going to be $60 or plus, and I don't feel like I have to play it on day one, and I do believe that it's going to be a game that is going to be easy to find later on, then don't buy it. A lot of games drop off in price, with the exception of one partner. But there's a lot of games I have in my collection that I've had for years that I can now find in the $10 bin at GameStop. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't refrain from buying these new titles, especially if you think they're going to be limited release or they're going to be hard to find. But if it can wait, I would push it off if you can. Now, ultimately, when I'm saying I will not follow those rules, I'm talking about those deals at GameStop or Facebook Marketplace where I'm finding a bulk of older titles that I can get for like 20 bucks, 30. I'm going to keep buying games. That is what I like doing. It brings me joy. And going through your backlog and trying to rush through it is kind of a waste of time, because if digital media really does take over, if physical media really does die, are you going to switch to pure digital media? Are you going to turn over to the people who want you to not actually own your games? Or are you going to fall back on the backlog that you have? So think of it as planning ahead. Will you get to every single game in your lifetime? Maybe. But ultimately, it really doesn't matter as long as you're having fun collecting, having fun displaying, and having fun playing your games. Who cares? This is one I think is really important. You do not have to 100% every game that you come across. Unless you're like a trophy hunter and it's what brings you joy, then go ahead, but you do not have to complete it.
And this is where I'd put a trophy. If I had one! Sorry, lost the happy.
Hell, you don't even have to finish the damn game. If you don't like what you're playing and you feel like you've given it an adequate amount of time, stop, move on, and play another game. I can't tell you how many times there's been games where I've started them and really didn't like the game, put it aside and came back to it about a year later or so, tried it again, and for some reason that time it clicked. But don't feel like you have to force yourself through a game that you are not enjoying just because it's in your backlog. Give the game the time it deserves, but don't feel like you overly have to kill yourself to enjoy the game. If you don't like the game, recondo that game, thank it for its time, and move on. Another decision you have to make, and this is something that you have to look within yourself, is are you somebody who has to only play one game at a time in order to focus on what you're playing? Or are you somebody who likes to dabble in a couple games at a time? Will dabbling in a couple games at a time hinder your ability to play through your games? That is something that you're going to have to self-evaluate. I am awful about starting way too many games at once. I'm currently right in the middle of like 4, and I think I was on 6, but I dropped 2. So maybe that is not the best move for me. Now, it depends on what we're all talking about, because like I'll take my Switch to work where I can't take my other consoles, so I have a Switch game going. I'm playing on my PlayStation 5, some new games that I want to play, but I'm also playing on my PlayStation 3 because there's a game I'm playing because Jen recommended it. If you find yourself hopping between the games and not getting anywhere, reevaluate it and possibly thin it down to like 1 or 2 games. And if you're somebody who has to just play one game at a time, try and stick with that, but find what works for you, because what works for others may not work for you. Me personally, I can't ever see myself only playing one game at a time unless it's got completely sucked me in. So I'll probably be playing like 2 to 3 games at a time. I do think I should personally refrain from going outside of that number because it gets a little bit ridiculous because I'm playing all these games but not really finishing any of them. I would say if you plan on making a list of games that you want to play in the next year to kind of help yourself work through your backlog, finish the ones that you've started now before you start this process. That way you're starting on a clean slate. The backlog is a beautiful thing. It's not this evil looming thing to be this other tedious adult thing that you have to do in your life. It's supposed to be a fun experience, not a like dumb adult experience like laundry. I rate that 0 out of 10. It is supposed to be a good thing, like I said at the beginning. So if your backlog is stressing you out, you might want to reevaluate how you view your games or how you view spending your time playing those games, because all of these games behind me are an adventure waiting to happen. And rushing to find the ending, you miss all of the adventure in between. I mean, I guess that's kind of a cheesy thing for like life. If you're rushing too fast to get to the end, you're gonna miss all the good stuff in the middle. So enjoy your games, spend your time with them. Learn to love new worlds, new characters. You might not realize this, but playing through your backlog and giving different games a chance might show you a game or like a game series that you fall absolutely in love with. That's what happened with me with Yakuza 0. I had no idea what that was. And when I started playing it, I was like, where has this been? How did I miss this? That could be your next game. You just gotta give some of the games in your backlog a chance. So make a list. Make sure it's realistic. Don't overpromise yourself. Don't buy day one titles if you can wait for them. Don't play too many games at once if you feel like it's gonna hinder your process. All of these things I think are good tips. Ultimately, I think that your gaming experience should be catered to yourself, and I think being open to tools to get yourself to play your games a little bit more frequently is not a bad thing. But I do think everyone should take a minute to kind of evaluate how they're approaching their backlog and remember to not try to rush through it. I hope to evaluate all of these tips that I've said at the end of the year to see what did and did not work for me. Would I adjust anything? Would I change anything about the process? What worked? You know, what did I learn? So I'm hoping to get through more games in my backlog, hopefully do a little bit more review videos on the channel. But thank you guys all so much for watching, and don't forget, there's a pixelated world waiting out there for you.